This is the Norris Group's Real Estate Investor Radio Show, the award-winning show dedicated to thought leaders shaping the real estate industry and local experts revealing their insider tips to succeed in an ever-changing real estate market. Hosted by author, investor, and hard money lender, Bruce Norris.
On Friday, September 22nd, the Norris Group proudly presents its 10th annual award-winning black tie event, I Survived Real Estate. An incredible lineup of industry experts will join Bruce Norris to discuss perplexing industry trends, head-scratching legislation, and opportunities emerging for real estate professionals. All proceeds from the event benefit Make-A-Wish and St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. This event would not be possible without the generous help of the following platinum partners: Housing Wire, Coach Fullerton, Coldwell Banker Town & Country, PropertyRadar, the Apartment Owners Association, the San Diego Creative Real Estate Investors Association, Invest Club, Las Brisas Escrow, MVT Productions, Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club, Realty 411, and White House Catering. Visit isurvivedrealestate.com for event information and tickets.
Hi, thank you for joining us. My name is Bruce Norris, and today we are joined by Sean OToole. Sean is the founder and CEO of PropertyRadar.com. Prior to launching PropertyRadar, Sean successfully purchased and flipped more than 150 residential and commercial foreclosures. Leveraging 15 years in the software industry, Sean used technology as a key competitive advantage to build his successful real estate investment track record. Sean has always thrived in startup environments and as such became a key contributor at Xing Technology, acquired by Real Networks, ISI Global Center, acquired by Global Crossing, and Icarian Inc., acquired by Workstream. Sean nearly lost his first home to foreclosure 20 years ago. With the help of local realtors, he was able to negotiate a short sale with a lender and move on. Years later, after a successful career as a Silicon Valley entrepreneur and executive, Sean returned to the foreclosure market as an investor. It didn't take him long to realize that the foreclosure data and tools he was forced to rely on were sorely lacking. In purchasing more than 150 foreclosures, it also became clear to Sean that the marketplace itself was deeply fragmented in ways that harmed both consumers and real estate service providers. So he pulled together a development team from his days in technology and got to work. And Sean, I guess the business never been the same since, so thanks a lot.
That's funny.
You know,
Thanks for having me today.
You know, it is kind of funny. And Aaron, I noticed he has a quote on your website. We use Property Radar every day. The amount of data is stunning. Technology has completely changed this business for the price. It's a no-brainer, and it really is, and it has been a game changer. When you got into the foreclosure business, you know, I was in it in Riverside, and following data was a full-time gig, and the changes were not known until you stood in front of the person calling the sale. So it was a tedious job.
Yeah, I don't think most of the folks in it today, because, you know, we just actually did a survey of all of our trustee sale investors, and, you know, better than 90% of them started after, you know, the crash and after we were in business. So they had literally no experience of what that was like before we existed.
Which is a shame in a way, because they have no idea how to appreciate it. They just think this is normal. What was the normal cost of the data was not hundreds of dollars a year, but hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month. And
yeah, one of my early customers said, you know, he was able to redeploy 2 full-time people, costing him more than $4,000 a month for the price of our $50 subscription. So
yeah, I mean, that should be on your website just so people don't go $50. Wow.
They still will.
Well, you know what's interesting is what you said. 90% of the people, yeah, because every county, I don't know how many buyers you had in the counties you were working, but in Riverside there were 6 people.
Yeah, that was also the big difference. Is there was a lot fewer folks, and, you know, because it was a lot harder. The barriers of entry were a lot higher.
Well, that's the thing. Even though the price range was certainly cheap, it was all of the chasing of the data, and the technical knowledge that you needed and everything. It wasn't in the least automated. So really, Foreclosure Radar was a game changer. It changed the ease of doing it to such a point, and the expense of it to such a point, that we now have we have a lot of competitors, and I'm sure the prices reflect that. The amount of money the lenders get per property as a percentage of what they used to get probably is much different.
I do think that if it hadn't been us, it would have been somebody, though.
In a way, what you did was you were trying to get in the business as an investor and found it flawed, and because of your background, you could fix it. Most investors don't even think about that stuff. They just think, okay, we're stuck with it. It would really have taken a technology expert like yourself to want to get in the business for that to happen, I think.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, there's plenty of folks running around Silicon Valley trying to solve other people's problems. They don't always do a good job of it, but I'm sure, we had at least 3 competitors launch at the same time we did. We're the only one of those that survived. But
I didn't realize that.
Somebody would have, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Foreclosure trackers, I don't know, there was few.
Okay.
They're all doing kind of the same thing.
So you still have the best foreclosure information. Of course, it's expanded way beyond there. But what sets the foreclosure information apart in your mind?
Well, unlike the big consumer sites or even the professional sites, we don't just track the recording of new notices. We also track what happens at the trustee sales each day. So opening bids, postponements, cancellations, and sales. So sales is a good example where we'll pick up that a sale happened, and whether it was to a third party or to a bank on the day of the sale.
Right.
The folks that only track the recorded notices won't see that until there's a trustee's deed, 2 or 3 weeks later. And then they just call all of those REO sales bank-owned properties, even though a pretty good percentage of them are bought by third parties, investors.
Okay. Well, that's pretty misleading.
Well, it's just the way it was always done before we did it differently.
Okay. So now the business has expanded way past trustee sales. So your trustee sale buyer is one segment of consumer that you provide services for. But what are some of the other categories that exist now?
Yeah, so we've, from the beginning, we've had a lot of our customers use this essentially for marketing to local homeowners, right? Whether that's a homeowner in distress because they want to buy the house before it goes to foreclosure auction, or whether that's a realtor maybe marketing to somebody underwater for a short sale. That's been a pretty primary part of our business. And when we expanded from foreclosure radar to property radar and really took into account every property and every homeowner rather than just those in foreclosure, that really expanded that kind of marketing aspect. And so, today we're really expanding beyond our initial market of realtors and real estate investors to really all small local businesses. And we're adding lots of new data. And it's data that big businesses have had for a long time, but we're trying to level the playing field for the small local guys so they can compete against this onslaught of big business. It's really destroying the fabric of America as far as we're concerned.
Wow. Okay. This new 3.0 that I looked on the website, that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah. So we just launched, we added phone numbers, demographics data like age and whether or not they have children and children ages and, estimated income and net worth. Those aren't terribly great data points, but it is what, all of the big guys are using. As well as, I think I mentioned phone numbers, social media profiles. If we're able to connect to social media profiles, we're often able to pull the person's picture in so you can actually see who you're doing business with as you're reaching out, to talk to them about whatever it is you have to offer.
And this can be done now as you're driving, right? You're looking at a vacant house and you're pulling all this stuff up.
Yeah, for sure. We kind of have these different marketing use cases, and one of my favorite is driving for dollars. And the map we show there, where literally as you're driving down the street, you see every property that's in foreclosure. You can see how old it is, how many square feet. Hopefully you're in the passenger seat. You're not actually driving.
Yeah.
But it's like a GPS with all of this information, showing as you drive down the street.
Well, just to show you the difference in what you're providing, when I was buying properties directly from people, and I would say this was probably in the late 80s. During one summer, I had a son of mine literally take a picture of every house in a certain zip code in Riverside. So we would do a mailer into that area, and when someone called, I literally had a picture of the property, and that was like a big deal. So when they called up, I said, "Oh, you're the blue house with the brick, brick fireplace." They're like, "What?" It set me apart because I actually thought, "Wow, you really know the area." And
right.
so funny.
And you actually are interested in my house. You just didn't send out a direct mail to everybody.
Yeah, it was. But think about the tedious. I was an all summer gig for my son.
Yeah.
And all I did was have a picture of the front. What you're talking about is so ridiculous at the point of your finger, on all the properties. That's just, it's really gotten to the point where it's mind-boggling how much access of information there is, and the cost of it.
We added a really cool street view mode in this version as well too. So you literally can not only look at their house, but you can kind of drag the screen and look up and down the street and look at the neighbors and stuff too, and then you can switch into bird's eye and take a look in their backyard. It's kind of scary at times.
Yeah, yeah, that is a little bit scary. One of the things that I noticed that you can do, which is kind of important, every once in a while, we'll have, we used to have foreclosure classes, and we'd have collected mailers from other investors, and some of them were pretty awful because the content was dear, and it was almost as bad as occupant. It wasn't like personal at all, because that was just the name that was in the information they had. And what you're able to do is now kind of edit the information where you can put in somebody's name. One of the references, it's a William to a Bill on the website. So if you now know somebody goes by something other than their formal name, you can include that, and it just appears like it's a more personal contact.
Yeah, that was an important part of this release too, is to let people add their own phone numbers, their own email addresses, edit the name, things along those lines, even add another person, et cetera, so that they really could, each time they're looking at a property and building a relationship with that homeowner, personalize it, add notes, maybe add some information about wife and kids' names and things like that, so that when you come back to that property, whether it's a few days later or months or even years later, you've got some additional context. It's just stupid to lose that if you have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And another tool is that you can see not only that the owner owns this property, but they own others as well. Yeah, that was we're still working on that. So that matching is really hard, but I think we'll see a lot of improvements over that time. But yeah, if you find a homeowner, our goal is to show you every other property they also own. And I always you think about if somebody owns 4 or 5 homes, that they're a different customer than somebody who that's their only home, right? Right.
Even if you're an investor reaching out to say, hey, I want to make you an offer on your house, you're going to approach that conversation differently if that's the person's only house and they're underwater than it's one of 50 houses that they own. And, they're obviously a sophisticated investor partner. The words you use, the conversation you have should all be different. Your marketing should be different.
Even the attitude of, I'll give you a perfect example. And this guy only owned 2 houses, one he lived in and one across the street, 3 houses down, which was exactly the same house. Okay. Only he was sick of that one. It had a renter that did some stuff to it, and he was tired of it. So he's got an $80,000 house, and I bought it for $35,000. And when he was signing the paperwork, he said to me, it was a kind of a, because he had pride in his house and everything. You couldn't touch this one for less than $85,000, and it was exactly a model match. So he had priced it over what it was worth, but he was selling me the one across the street 3 doors down for $35,000 because he could care less about that one anymore.
He just wanted out of it.
It wasn't even late. It wasn't a foreclosure. He was just tired of dealing with the management. But that's the difference in attitude, if you will, of somebody that has more than one. It's a big difference.
Well, that was a really hard part for me coming into this business because, I'm the son of a logic professor, and, that story doesn't even make sense to me. Like, how would the same model, how could he ever come to that conclusion? And yet, over my years, I've had all these deals that make absolutely no sense to me, but made perfect sense to the person on the other side, and they needed out. And oftentimes they talked to 2 or 3 realtors, and, all they did was put up roadblocks. And I walked in as an investor, and and bought it for pennies on the dollar. And I actually really had a hard time with that. It didn't make sense to me.
I agree with that. I mean, as an investor, I'll share with one other conversation. This was a house in Corona. I think the numbers were it was worth about $140. The guy had a $78,000 loan on it, and the ad I had just running an ad in the local paper at the time. Guy calls up. He said, "I just want you, take over the payment." And I thought, okay, well, the house certainly isn't worth what I'm thinking it is. And I go there, and it's actually in pretty decent shape in a nice area. It's worth $140,000. He owes $78,000, and he doesn't want any money for it. He just wants me. And so I start being logical, going, "Why don't you just list it?" I'm telling him this stuff. Why don't you list it? Why don't you rent it? And he looks at me like I have a hole in my head. He said, "You run an ad that you buy houses. You're going to buy it or not?" I said, "Are you telling me you're going to deed the property to somebody for no money down today to somebody?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, well, might as well be me." So when we're doing the paperwork, I said, "You know what? I just don't get it. I need to understand why this is a good decision for you." And he said, "This is the only payment I have in my life." He said, "I get a $10,000 a month income from a building that was in my family, and I've never owed any money in my life, and it's just driving me nuts. So I just want to go rent somewhere." I said, "Even though the rent's going to be $1,300, you have a payment of $7." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay."
Yeah. I was terrible at door knocking and talking to folks because I found myself, trying to talk them out of the deal rather than into the deal 9 times out of 10. So,
but
it was not what I was good at.
Well, in a way, I think that, I guess I like the fact that I'll do that because I have found when people fight me, they really are going to be a seller to an investor. It's not like they go, "Oh, I never thought about that. I could list it. Okay, I'll do that." It's like they've already pre-thought that out, but sometimes the decisions are so skewed from what you would do, you just almost have to go, "Are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this?" All right. We got about 7 minutes left. Why don't we talk a little bit about just the trends, number of trustee sales, and maybe we'll be specific to California. What does 2017 look like versus 2016?
Yeah. We've been kind of saying flat is the new black for some time. And, that's still pretty much the trend that, we're seeing, flat to slightly down. I don't really see much end to that trend. A lot of people there's a lot more bubble talk, these days than there was 2 years ago, and the rest. But I think a 20% or so correction in the market and a little increase in foreclosures would actually be a really healthy thing for the market and for the economy overall. Might get volume up again. That's the other thing we are seeing is, volumes are down. So even though prices are up, volumes are down. So, and we see that kind of continuing as well, due to a lack of supply, due to people being a little bit more entrenched in their home and not wanting to kind of gamble with moving around as much, and some other trends along those lines.
You would have enjoyed this one guy in this audience. A couple of weeks ago I spoke, and I actually had a heckler in the audience. It was fun. It was a lot of fun because he didn't know anything about what he was talking about, but he was really sure he was right. And it was kind of fun because, you and I are pretty much data-based, and we have a really good idea of what we're talking about and why. And one of his points is there's so many, there's so much shadow inventory, you have no idea, And I said, well, actually, I know a guy that counts all of it, so I really do have an idea, and it's not there. You ever run across people that still think that's like behind the scenes? There's a ton of stuff that hasn't shown up yet.
Yeah, and I gotta say I have some empathy for them, but it's it's no longer, like you said, in houses and banks sitting on a bunch of houses. But I think like if you look at Nevada,
well, that's
where they just stopped doing foreclosures. I'm quite certain there's a lot of people sitting in houses now for almost a decade who haven't made a payment.
You won't believe, but the next question verbatim is, what's your take on the policies that were initiated to prevent the full brunt of the crash? And I had Nevada in mind when I wrote that down. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of hard to argue with the short-term results, right? And that's kind of the mindset we live in, these days is, trade our future for short-term results, kind of what politics is all about these days, not just this last election, but for quite some time. And, I think it's really unfortunate. I do think, and where I have empathy for the guy who's going, you don't understand how bad it is, when you do peel the onion a little bit and you look at, how much, MBS the Fed took on and is still sitting on, and the rest, I really don't. House of Cards may be overstating it a little bit, but this is not, by historical standards, a healthy economy. No,
it's what's interesting is I wonder if we've kind of created a new rule book, like a playbook. Okay, well, if this happens, then this is what we do. Because, the expectation, if you were in Nevada and you were upside down on your equity position, next cycle, you would be going, well, they're not going to foreclose on me.
Right. I'm not going to walk away. I'll just sit here and not make my payments until the value comes back up, and I'll worry about it then.
Yeah. That's the most amazing example. You're really familiar with Nevada because you provide service there, and I'm not that familiar with it, but if you don't foreclose on anybody and no one moves, you have a housing shortage and you create a building boom. And that's exactly what happened. It's a crazy thing.
I know how much the prices are going up, and it's like, okay, this isn't a perfectly, good thing. And, I just think there's unintended consequences there. What are you teaching those folks? What are you teaching their kids? And, what does that mean kind of for society as a whole? Every time we launch a new product, right, and we make some changes, we always get a couple customers that are just really anti-change, right? And they get angry.
Okay.
And you do get not a lot, fortunately. So it's a 0.5% thing. But I think Nordstrom with the customer is always right thing. Which started decades ago, really put us on the wrong track as a society, right? I can just demand, that you, even though I just stole a bunch of data for you, I'm going to demand that you give me my money back.
Right.
And I expect that you will and that you have to. It's a really, interesting thing, and the policy works for Nordstrom because it's only a few people, right, that go wear the shoes for 6 months, wear them out and bring them back and expect the full refund. But, you see that sometimes, and I don't know that it's just an entitlement thing or what, but, there's a part of me that says, the customers that are really nice, when asking for a refund that's maybe against our policy, let's help those people.
Yeah.
And then the people who are demanding and mean, just shut them down. Don't do anything for them.
Yeah.
Because somebody's got to change like that, the mentality that folks have. And unfortunately, it is still a squeaky wheel gets the grease world.
I agree. We are out of time, and that's a shame, but we will pick it up on September 22nd. Sean, I really appreciate you taking time to be on that panel again. I really do.
The Norris Group would like to thank its gold sponsors for supporting I Survived Real Estate. First Lending Solutions, Guaranteed Rate and Nathan Chaboya, In a Day Development, Inland Valley Association of Realtors, Jennifer Buys Houses, Keller Williams Corona, Keystone CPA, LA South RIA, Michael Ryan, New Western, North San Diego Real Estate Investors, Northern California Real Estate Investors Association, Orange County Investment Club, Pacific Premier Bank, Pasadena Phoebe, Pilot Limousine, Real Wealth Network, Rick and Leanne Rossiter, the San Jose Real Estate Investors Association, San Francisco Bay Real Estate Networking Summit, Sunoco Corporation, South Orange County Real Estate Club, Spinnaker Loans, Think Realty, You Direct IRA Services, West and South Coast Plaza, Wilson Investment Properties Inc., See isurvivedrealestate.com for event information.
For more information on hard money loans and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For information on passive investing with trust deeds, visit tngtrustdeeds.com.